Hi, everyone, and welcome to A+ English. I'm Joe.
And welcome back. I'm Winnie.
Yesterday was day 2 out of 3 days we're spending on the classic tale of Anne of Green Gables. Now, we had Anne, and she had come to Matthew and Marilla's farm, the brother and sister who had adopted her, only they had expected to adopt a boy and not a girl. So I guess they were trying to figure out whether they were going to keep her or not, whether they were going to allow her to stay on the farm or send her back. Marilla wanted to send her back to the orphanage.
Aww.
Like they were returning a gift that they didn't want anymore.
Luckily, they decided to keep Anne.
Yeah, they decided to keep her, and she went to school because she was really smart, and she worked hard, and she learned quickly, but how was school for her? It wasn't that good, was it?
No, it was terrible.
Yeah, she had a really bad day at school. She wanted to learn, and she wanted to work hard. She wanted to answer questions, but she didn't know the rules, and she got some of the answers wrong. So some of the kids were making fun of her. They were teasing her. You know how kids can be sometimes. So it wasn't the greatest, but she didn't go home and cry, or she didn't let it get her down. She thought, no, I'm going to be the best student in the school, and I'm going to work hard. I'm going to make Matthew and Marilla proud.
Wow.
That's where we left off yesterday, and that's where we'll pick up the story again today. So let's go ahead and read through day 3.
Welcome to Green Gables, Anne.
Anne studied very hard. She moved to the city and attended the Queen's Academy. When she graduated, she returned to Green Gables. She was happy to see Marilla and Matthew. However, they looked so old. Marilla's eyesight was poor and Matthew's heart was weak. Anne decided to move home and care for them. She visited her old school to look for work. Gilbert was now a teacher there. Although they fought as children, Gilbert happily greeted Anne. Anne told him about Marilla and Matthew. Gilbert said, "We're looking for another teacher. Are you interested?" Anne smiled.
Of course. I even get to work with my old friend Gilbert.
City. City. There are more jobs in the city. There are more jobs in the city. Weak. Weak. Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches. Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches. Fight. Fight. Fight, fought, fought. My parents are always fighting about money. My parents are always fighting about money. Greet. Greet. Mark stood by the door to greet the guests. Mark stood by the door to greet the guests.
The story begins today by saying Anne studied very hard. She moved to the city and attended the Queen's Academy. Okay, first of all, we have the word city. It's a large, important town, Taipei City, for example. We could say there are more jobs in the city. There are more jobs in the city. And to attend, it just means to go to a school or an institution. So usually when you say, I'm going to university, you can also say, I attend university. Or in this case, it's an academy. An academy is just a fancy way of saying it's a place where it's a fancy way of saying it's a place where you learn something.
So it's just Queen's School?
It's the Queen's School or the Queen's College or University. It's a fancy word for school.
昨天我们说到 Anne 就下定决心要用功读书，让 Matthew 和 Marilla 骄傲，所以今天文章一开始就说到 Anne 是真的很用功，她甚至搬到大城市中就读皇后学院。 City 这一定要会的啦，比如 Taipei City、高雄 City， 这就是城市的意思。例如例句中提到就是城市里会有比较多工作机会。I get that there are more jobs in the city, but school in the city, is it necessarily better?I
think back then it definitely was. All the best schools were in the big centers. They were in the New Yorks of the world, the Bostons of the world, or if it was in Canada, it would be like in Toronto or some other major city like that. That's where all the oldest and best universities or academies were.
And it's named after Queen, so...
It's named after the Queen, so...
Does it mean it's super good?
That means it has the Queen's actually approval.We have some different schools, and they are named after the king or the queen. I went to a school called King's College, and that was actually because it had gotten the approval of one of the old kings of England. That's telling you exactly how old the school was, and in fact, it was the oldest university in Canada.
Cool.
Not necessarily the best anymore, but it used to be.Okay.
So where did you go? Oh, I went to the King's.
Yes, I would say it very proudly and with my chin up in the air and my head held high. I went to King's College.
所以在国外大部分厉害的知名的学校都坐落在大城市，所以如果你去到大城市念书，通常就代表你读得蛮厉害的啦。尤其你看到这学校是以皇后的名字命名，那通常也是很优秀的学校啦。
Now, when she graduated, she returned to Green Gables. She was happy to see Marilla and Matthew. Yes, when you finish school, when you complete university or college successfully, or high school for that matter, you graduate. That's the ceremony that you have to say that you are moving on from that school. You've passed all your tests and you've finished writing all your papers, and you've gotten good enough grades to move on to the next phase of your education or the next part of your life.
就是离家求学就终于毕业啦 graduate. And 毕业后就搬回 Green Gables. 还记得这里吗？就是 Matthew 和 Marilla 接他回来住的这个农场。
However, they looked so old. So she's been away for a while, and so Matthew and Marilla, of course, have probably changed while she's been away.Marilla's eyesight was poor, and Matthew's heart was weak. So if your eyesight, of course, has to do with your eyes, your sense of sight. We say her eyesight was poor. Poor here has nothing to do with money. It just means it's bad. It means your eyesight was bad. She couldn't see very well. And Matthew's heart was weak. If something is weak, that's an adjective. It means it's not physically strong.For example, Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches. Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches.
当然啦，随着 Anne 长大 Matthew 和 Marilla 就也越来越老啦，上了年纪就可能会遇到视力退化啊，或是心脏的问题。 Weak 这个字是形容词，虚弱的，不强壮的，所以 Matthew 心脏虚弱就会或是像例句 Henry 是胃不好，就常常会肚子痛啦。 Can I say I have a weak brain, so I often have a headache?
If you say you have a weak brain, that probably means you're not that smart.
Oh, really?
That's not true, so you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say I have a weak brain.So
it cannot describe a brain.
It doesn't really describe a brain. It usually describes something like a muscle. The heart. The heart, for example, is actually a muscle. So that's why we're describing it as being weak. Something that can be strong can also be weak. So Anne decided to move home and care for them. To care for somebody means you're going to take care of them. You're going to do what they need so they can be healthy and they can live their day-to-day lives with some assistance or with some help from you.
记得一开始 Matthew 和 Marilla 是想把他送回孤儿院，是因为他才有了上学的机会，所以他现在决定搬回家 to care for them. 你也可以说 take care of them, 照顾两老。
All right, so she's going to take care of Matthew and Marilla. That's very nice of her.
Yeah.
She's going to kind of work and take care of them at the same time. She visited her old school to look for work. She needs to get a job, too. Gilbert was now a teacher there. You remember Gilbert? Gilbert was the mean kid, the smart kid, the one who was making fun of her and teasing her, and here he is again. He has become a teacher. This bully is now teaching kids. I wonder if he's a good teacher or does he make fun of the kids? But I guess we're going to find out in just a little bit.
记得我们说 there are more jobs in the city, 所以搬回到农场可能附近没什么工作机会，那他就想想啊，问问看以前他去的学校有没有工作啦。But Gilbert was working there. 记得我们说 Anne 上学第一天被 Gilbert 嘲笑嘛。What did Gilbert do? Did he make fun of her again?
The story says, although they fought as children, Gilbert happily greeted Anne.
Wow.
Okay, so when they were kids, they fought. Fight is a verb. It can say fight, fought, fought. It means to argue in an angry way. Sometimes it means when people actually might hit each other or something like that. But it can also mean just to say words, to fight verbally, in other words. For example, my parents are always fighting about money. My parents are always fighting about money.
Fight 是吵架、争吵，在文章里是它的过去式 fought， 可以是肢体上的打架，口语上的争执也可以用 fight 这个字。像例句中，父母总是为了金钱争吵 ，They're not really hitting each other for money.
No, definitely not. Just saying, why do you spend so much money? That's my $100. No, that's my $100. No, I earned that kind of thing. Okay. Not actually hitting one another. So, it says they used to fight when they were kids, but they greeted each other. And to greet just means to say hello to someone or to welcome them. For example, Mark stood by the door to greet the guests. Mark stood by the door to greet the guests.
还好他们真的没有打起来啦，反而 Gilbert 是很开心的问候 Anne。我们来学这个字 greet 是动词，表示迎接问候，就是跟人家打招呼 say hello。例句的意思就是 Mark 站在门边招呼客人。What would you usually say when you greet people?
You just say something like hello or hi. It's nice to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time no see, those kinds of things.
Okay.
Friendly ways of greeting one another. Now, Anne told him about Marilla and Matthew, and Gilbert said, we're looking for another teacher. Are you interested?
Yay.
So that all worked out pretty well. There was nobody made fun of anybody and nobody got into a fight.
I kind of want to see that.
Yeah, it's too bad. I was hoping for a nice good fight, but we don't get that.
Nope. Yeah, 所以这是一个很 lovely 的 story. 故事的名字叫做清秀佳人嘛，当然结局也要很温馨啦。Gilbert 很开心的招呼 Anne， 然后听到他在找工作，就很巧的他们学校也正好在找新的老师。It would be interesting to see what they were gonna fight about when they are adults. Maybe Anne could finally take revenge on Gilbert.
Oh, Anne's much too kind for that. She's a very nice girl, and I guess there's no revenge coming. She just smiled. It says Anne smiled. Of course. I can even get to work with my old friend, Gilbert. Wow, they weren't friends, were they, when they were kids? He was making fun of her, and she was saying, well, I'm going to be a better student than you. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to be better than you, Gilbert. So maybe that was her revenge, becoming a better student than Gilbert. And
oh, that's cool.
So Gilbert's safe. Gilbert's not going to get hit on the head or anything like that. So this is the nice, pleasant conclusion to the story.
Anne 很开心找到工作，还可以就近照顾她的恩人 Matthew 跟 Marilla， 而且还可以跟老朋友 Gilbert 一起工作。Get to do something 是今天的 Magic Box， 那我们就一起去找亮点吧。
Magic Box 找亮点。
Hi, it's me, Winnie. 昨天我跟我的好朋友好不容易聚会，为什么说好不容易呢？因为她是个空姐，时不时就飞来飞去。尤其大家都知道，空姐是要轮休的，大家周末休假的时候，她一定是在工作啦。But it's really nice to work as a flight attendant. 不过昨天跟她聊天后，发现当空姐其实很不赖耶。First of all, she gets to travel around the world, and she gets to see a lot of famous people.我们先来谈正事啦。你有听到我说 get to do something, get to travel around the world, get to see famous people. 口语上我们常用 get to do something 来指有机会做某事，它就当一般动词使用，所以也可以用过去式 got to do something 或是否定加上 not get to do something， 也有未来式 will get to do something。比如你把英文学好，将来可以当翻译 Then you get to work for superstars。你也可以去国外工作 You get to work and live abroad. Or, like my friend, she speaks good English, so she is a flight attendant and she gets to travel a lot. 听起来学会英文有机会做很多事情诶，你可以帮大明星翻译，可以去国外工作和生活，或者像我的朋友边工作边旅行，还可以见到很多名人。Or you can be an English teacher. You get to speak English and teach English every day. Yeah, sounds exciting. 所以啦，这件事情告诉我们，把英文学好，有机会可以做很多事，但听起来好像当英文老师最不吸引人欸。So study English and you will get to do as many things as possible. So Joe, this is for you.
Okay.
Have you thought about, like, right now you're living in Taiwan?
That's right.
What if your parents get older? Would you move back?
Would I move back to Canada? I think so. If my parents needed some help, I would have to go back and take care of them because, well, they took care of me for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't just leave them there on their own. I do have a brother back home, so maybe he could do it, but I would not just leave it all on him and be like, yeah, you just handle all that.
That's your job.
That's your job. I'll just be over here having fun and living my own life.
But it's going to be tough for you to leave Taiwan too.
Of course, I do love it here. I have a life here. I have my job and my career here. But, you only have one set of parents, and I happened to have a very good set of parents. So
nice.
I would have to go back and take care of them, just like Anne did for her adopted parents.
She didn't even think for a second.
No, she just said right away, you guys aren't doing so well. I'm going to take care of you right now. So that's a great story. She's kind of paying them back for taking her in, even though at first they weren't sure if they were going to keep her.
Let's just forget about that.
No, she just forgets about all of that, and she's going to take care of them. So it's a very touching story, and we hope you have enjoyed it over the past 3 days. Until next time, for A+ English, I'm Joe.
And I'm Winnie. Bye.
Goodbye.
A+ 小聚会
Would you mind switching seats with me?
Would you mind switching seats with me?
Hello everyone, it's Albie. 不晓得大家有没有这种经验哦？开开心心的要出国去，拿到机票后却发现你跟朋友或家人的机位被拆散了，天哪！要跟陌生人坐，这时候如果位子又刚好被安排在靠窗，之后上厕所又要一直经过人家，超级不好意思的。其实啊，等大家坐定位后，在飞机起飞前，如果你想要坐在你朋友旁边，你不妨可以问问他左右的乘客，你愿意跟我换位子吗？英文你可以说 Would you mind switching seats with me? Would you mind switching seats with me? 我们先看到句子里面的 Would you mind 就是你愿意吗？你介不介意的意思哦。你也可以用 Do you mind? 不过用 would 会比较有礼貌一点哦。Mind 后面接上 V-I-N-G 介不介意做什么事情？例如 Would you mind taking a picture of us? 你愿意帮我们拍张照吗？那我们回到句子里的 switch 这个字，在这里有交换调换的意思。Switch something with somebody 和某人交换某物。那我们常常听到 switch the light on, switch the light off 这是有打开或关掉开关的意思哦。不过说实在的，小时候的我可能很在意飞机的位置，但是我现在不一样咯。自从我有一次旁边坐了一个超帅的陌生人，还跟他攀谈一下，天哪，我现在想到还是会小鹿乱撞。从此我都好期待旁边会不会坐的是帅哥哦。好啦，不要再听我花痴了，再来练习一下今天的小聚会吧。Would you mind switching seats with me? Good job, guys! A+ 小聚会，我们下次见咯，拜。
Would you mind switching seats with me?
Would you mind switching seats with me?
Welcome to Green Gables, Anne.
Anne studied very hard. She moved to the city and attended the Queen's Academy. When she graduated, she returned to Green Gables. She was happy to see Marilla and Matthew. However, they looked so old. Marilla's eyesight was poor and Matthew's heart was weak. Anne decided to move home and care for them. She visited her old school to look for work. Gilbert was now a teacher there. Although they fought as children, Gilbert happily greeted Anne. Anne told him about Marilla and Matthew. Gilbert said, "We're looking for another teacher. Are you interested?" Anne smiled.
Of course. I even get to work with my old friend Gilbert.
City. City. There are more jobs in the city. There are more jobs in the city. Weak. Weak. Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches. Henry has a weak stomach, so he often gets stomach aches. Fight. Fight. Fight, fought, fought. My parents are always fighting about money. My parents are always fighting about money. Greet. Greet. Mark stood by the door to greet the guests. Mark stood by the door to greet the guests.